So yes, as Valerie said, I'm Lou Lenzi. I lead the design team at GE Appliances in what's now a very cold and frigid Louisville, Kentucky. One thing we have going for us is some great bourbon, so if you're next time you're in Louisville, stop by and we'll treat you to that. It's a real pleasure to be here and an honor, to be in this facility. The basis for this talk actually began last August. I was participating in a workshop, a future living project workshop here at the School of Architecture and Urban Planning, and Hitoshi ran a great workshop. And I made the point during the course of the workshop that when you think about society, you think about our lifestyle, the kitchen, our lifestyles, our societal behaviors. And he said, well, if you believe it, come over here and talk about it. So here I am. But really, as a manufacturer of major kitchen appliances, and in our world, a kitchen appliance are things like refrigerators, dishwashers, stoves, cooktops, etc. So those big things you use to prepare meals and preserve food, etc. But as a designer and manufacturer of those products, it's really important that my design team understands what's going on in the American home and where the American home is going, so that we can design products that will appropriately fit into the home. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that idea tonight, and hopefully after my presentation we can get into a dialogue around this. So I'm going to start by giving you a sort of an evolution of the kitchen and the home to kind of validate my thesis, and you can decide whether I'm full of it or not. But from there, then I'm going to talk about a current shift that's underway in the United States in terms of housing. Valerie alluded to it, urbanization. And that's really going to transform how we think about kitchen design, how we think about appliances in the home. And it's going to also, I think, really spur a new change in how we develop products, how we manufacture products, and how we distribute products. So there's a real major shift undergoing in the American home. And again, I hope we can kind of talk about it as we go along. If you look at the origin of today's kitchen, it really began about 100 years ago. In 1906, GE introduced its first all-electric stove, introduced it in the marketplace here in the United States. And that introduction began a progression of electrical appliances from GE that eventually led in 1951 to the creation of Appliance Park. And you can see in the billboard we proudly present this notion of living better electrically. We're still in that facility. It looks it in some respects, but that's our headquarters today. At the time of that introduction in the early 1900s, the real theme and the real societal advancement was really, it wasn't about preparing necessarily a great meal, it was preparing a meal in a way that was healthy and safe to eat. When you think about electric refrigeration, that was a pretty big leap forward. And you take a look at these two ads from the early part of the 20th century. You can see the focus was on the benefits of preserving food through electrical refrigeration. So it was really, it was more about staying healthy and than it was about preparing these great meals. Following that era, once this notion of food preservation and healthy living kind of took hold and was popular and basically mainstream, the shift then became more towards one of efficiency, order, and modernity. You look at the imagery, the kitchen then became sort of this almost hospital operating room kind of a clean room, shiny floors to reflect this notion that we're more modern. The work triangle became a popular notion, and if you're familiar with the work triangle, that was basically a definition of the space between the relationship between the sink, the stove, and the refrigerator, and laying that space out so that you're reflecting a more efficient, better utilization of your time. And it was really about getting in and out of the kitchen as quickly as possible, believe it or not. So we went from providing a safe way to prepare food to a more efficient environment in which to get in, prepare the meal, and then get out. This ad this brochure from GE in 1936 talks about countless steps and lost hours. So again, it was really about efficiency. It wasn't so much about let's all congregate in the kitchen. Let's get in and get out, if you will. From here, then, we entered the post-war era, and of course, like a lot of things in the post-World War II era, optimism and exuberance was really what it was all about. And that era really unleashed, I believe, an incredible amount of creativity. What was happening was, we had this new generation of engineers, industrial designers, and marketers that were really just full of ideas and how to make technology available to the masses, in that post-war period. Wealth was up, and it was really an optimistic period of time. And so you saw that in these homes of the future, these kitchen wonderlands, if you will. A couple of the images here on the left, you see in the upper left that was the Frigidaire Kitchen of Wonder. It was part of the General Motors Motorama that would tour the country and expose these new ideas and concepts and technology in the home. And the kitchen really became that technology center in the home. In the lower left image, that's Art Beckvar, my predecessor, many years removed, head of design at GE in 1961, demonstrating the GE Kitchen of Tomorrow. And it's kind of interesting, some of the call-outs. An ultrasonic dishwater, automatic plastic dish maker. I guess that's a MakerBot now, isn't it? Ice and water dispenser, et cetera. So again, foreshadowing a lot of technology in the home through the kitchen. What this did, this notion of technological wonder, then translated into some, I think there's some pretty wonderful ideas and concepts in terms of product design of the period. Look at the wall-mounted refrigerator, which is kind of clever. Modular kitchens, you can see the GE Kitchen Center, a modular design. The refrigerator center that has the fresh food up above and then the freezer drawers below. And all that product was being developed and sold, through the traditional appliance retailers in the 50s and the 60s. So it was a time of wonderful invention and technology. The one piece of technology that I think really represented home automation, the first instance of home automation, was the electric dishwasher. When you think about, the other appliances in the kitchen, you can't, make a meal without heat. You can't preserve a meal, a dish without a refrigerator. But you could still wash dishes. But here we came out with this notion of a machine that could wash dishes for you. And a lot of consumers today still see that as sort of that first step into automation in the home. From there, then, of course, the flight to the suburbs began. And as a result of that, I think we lost some of our creative energy and thinking, because it was just a matter of, mass producing the living environment. And we kind of played along with it as appliance manufacturers, as developers were producing these single-family residents almost in an automated production assembly line fashion. We followed suit, and we said, okay, well, we'll follow you along, and we'll modularize our appliance as well. And that's a standard we still have today. It's basically a 6-inch modulus that starts at 24 inches wide, and then it steps to 30, and then 36, and 42, and 48. And while that's great when you're cranking out high-volume, mass-produced homes, again, I think you lose something in terms of understanding, how people, live and kind of experience the kitchen. And today, that's still, a very prominent way of viewing appliances. Is I need a 36-inch range, or I need a 42-inch refrigerator. And again, that's been with us since the 60s. That doesn't mean that we haven't changed in terms of features and functionality we have. And I think a lot of the current thinking, kind of ties back to this notion of the food, the food culture, celebrity chefs, the cooking channels, cooking competitions. All of that led towards a more professional kind of approach to appliances, and now you're starting to see technologies like induction cooking, magnetic resonance to heat food, et cetera. But again, it's still kind of based on that same modulus. Which brings us to today, and this is, granted, this is a very aspirational image, but what it reflects is how a lot of Americans think about the kitchen. It has become the hub of the home. We hear this a lot when we get out and talk to consumers. We do a lot of research in the field, and people talk about this is where life happens. It's that congregation point, that island in the kitchen that is where people sort of meet and discuss their days, and it's not always about meal preparation, in fact. So that's where we are today. So let's talk a little bit about the future and where we think the world is going. When we talk about where the home is going, I think you really need to start from a demographic standpoint and look at the succeeding generation of homeowner and where they're going and how they define what is home. We can talk about things like mortgage rates, credit availability. We can talk about job growth and can I afford a home. Those are all very short-term kind of kind of trends, but when you talk about long-term trends, you really need to kind of focus in on demographics and how this next generation views home. And in our case, it's really about the millennials. The millennials are really going to drive how we think about home design and kitchen design. Millennials is commonly defined as people that were born between 1980 and 1995. It makes up about 60 million people, in the United States. Total population of the U.S., as we know, is about 315 million. So it's a pretty sizable population. However, it's not as big as the baby boomer generation, my generation, of about 75 to 80 million. But it's still going to drive where we go as designers, architects, and builders. So with that, let's kind of take a look at some data that would suggest, where we're heading. A good place to start is home ownership rates. This is kind of a busy chart, but I wanted to make the point that if you look at home ownership rate, in general, overall population of the United States, home ownership rates have been dropping. And if you kind of look at that period between 2005 and 2014, and the reason I picked that period is 2005, 2006, 2007 was sort of, I don't want to say we're at our peak, but that if you remember those days, people were buying homes, and let's face it, that was sort of the precursor to the housing bust. So if you kind of let that be sort of the high water mark or near normal, you look at 08, 09 as sort of the trough, and then, as we're climbing back out today. But with that in mind, the overall, homeowner rate has dropped about 7% from 05 to 2014. And then you break it down by the millennial generation, if you will. And if you look at the upper left, where we're talking about the 30 to 34-year-olds, home ownership rate over that period of time dropped 17% from 57% to 48%. So less than half of that very important generation are not in the home market, homeowners market. The 25 to 29-year-old dropped 23% from 42 to 32%, and then the under 25 is kind of hanging in there around 25 to 26%. Pretty dramatic drop. So this is not one of these things, well, next year it'll be better and we'll be back to normal. I think you definitely see a very long-term trend happening here with home ownership in the United States. Now, that's not to say that single-family residents aren't coming back. They are. This is data from the National Association of Home Builders, and they track housing starts of all kinds. Right now, 2014 came in at 92% versus the bottom. So if you look at the kind of the trough of 353,000 new single-family home starts, jumping up to 677 last year, that's pretty impressive. But if you look at it relative to sort of that steady state normal of 1.2 million housing starts per year, single-family housing starts, it's half the run rate. So again, this is a major shift taking place. Conversely, if we take a look at rental properties, they're coming back in a much faster pace than single-family residents. 82,000 starts in 2009 to almost 400,000 starts last year, and it's actually running above the normal run rate. So we are shifting from an ownership to a rental society. And this is another, I think, kind of an interesting indicator is if you kind of look at the composition of the home, about a quarter of the U.S. population are single-family or single-person living alone, and that has been steadily going up since the 80s. So you see this shift towards more independence, more single living going on. Now, you can look at that 25% as sort of the normal, and then look at some of the larger cities. And granted, the larger cities do over-index. We know that. For example, while 26% is total U.S., 40% in Denver, 32%. That you kind of expect that, and that you'd say, well, that's the kids graduating from school and they want to try living in the big city for a while before they check out and head towards suburbia. But if you look at growth in rental properties in the United States in the larger cities, it's up. So this isn't one of these transient kind of phenomenons. You're seeing a return towards the urban centers. So what do we see? Well, we see, first of all, shrinking home ownership rates. We see a large number of people living alone, and a growing demand for rental units in the larger cities, which, by the way, are not inexpensive. I think, being here in Los Angeles, I'm sure most of you can attest to that. So what we've concluded then, with looking at that data, is that, and by the way, we sell a lot of our products through the builder contractor channel, so we have a pretty good pulse on what's going on in rental property, what's going on in single family, et cetera. There is this trend towards urbanization. It's not a fad, it's a long-term trend. So we need to be thinking about products and product design in higher density urban rental settings. So, the title of my talk was, from McMansion to micro-living. I think we're approaching this era of micro-living. So in order to meet this new demand, this urbanization, a lot of the rental property managers are converting to these smaller footprint living spaces. Why? Because as you have more people converging on a real estate property and just finite space, it makes sense to begin to shrink the space itself to increase the number of properties available to the rental market. And at the same time, you can then effectively lower the rental rate, making it more affordable. So living smaller in a more dense situation, but in a more affordable situation. The Urban Housing Institute says that a micro space is somewhere between 25 and 30% cheaper than a conventional rental unit. So that's a pretty big savings. So it's no wonder then that you're seeing the shift towards this micro living. We've had 350 square feet as sort of our target space when we design for this environment. But let's face it, you go up to Seattle and you see what's going on there with these apartments that are 250 square feet, 150 square feet. It's not uncommon. So this 350 is, in some respects, is considered a big number. And what's happening now is you have cities like New York. A couple of years ago, Mayor Bloomberg had this micro living competition. Design the best physical environment, the smallest footprint space. And I think they came in at 350. But then you have cities like San Francisco that are actually legislating what type of living space is a micro unit, because obviously you want your community to live in a proper environment. So we kind of define a micro living unit as 350 square feet, a fully functional kitchen, and obviously a fully functional bathroom. So that's sort of what we consider as a micro unit. So having said that, you kind of look at our products today, and let's face it, we've been designing, again, for that same environment for years and years and years. And while that suite of appliances that you see in the illustration could fit into one of these micro units, you really have to wonder, given the composition of a micro unit, you're talking about a small open space, very few walls. There really is no kitchen anymore in a micro unit. Everything is really out there to be seen. So it's obvious that we're going to need a more integrated solution, one that is more conducive to a small footprint living environment. But at the same time, we can't skimp in terms of technology and the technology offer and the ability to prepare a great meal. That's still, front and center what we have to deliver. This is not about decontenting a product and shrinking it. It's really about designing it properly from the ground up to fit that environment. So this is our micro kitchen concept, and I say concept, and as we get into it, I'll talk a little bit more about our production roadmap. But this is a concept, and this is really intended to be that initial proposal we take out to the builder contractor community and get input and feedback. But the basic concept is this 6 linear foot micro kitchen, and it's built on a 2 foot wide module that is assembled to create this notion of a fully functional kitchen. Besides the 24-inch wide module, we're talking about standard counter depth height and standard counter depth, so 36 inches high and 25 inches deep. And so if we stay towards some of the standards in terms of cabinetry, then we think it'll be a little bit easier to install the unit as well. So this is the cooking module, and again, we're not skimping in terms of technology. The upper module is a full convection oven with speed cooking technology, and the lower oven is a traditional radiant oven. And then next to that is the refrigeration module, and the refrigerator drawers, and this is all drawer based, are convertible. So if you need more fresh food than frozen, you can flip a switch and convert the drawer appropriately. You'll notice to the left, again, an induction cooktop, again, the latest technology, so that we're providing the ability to provide a great meal. And the cleaning module is based on, again, this 24-inch wide drawer dishwasher with a standard sink, a cutting board built on top of the sink, and then trying to deal with the water faucet in a kind of a swing out, low profile fashion. Again, when it's not in use and it's in one of these 350-foot spaces, you don't want to be looking at what would be considered a kitchen sink. And then the user interface obviously also has to play a role here. We brought all the controls up front for ADA compliance. We have touch controls, and we have notification information on the front of the cabinets to provide information on, cycle length, etc. And then the backsplash has a downdraft ventilation, task lighting, USB ports, and docking station for your tablet and your smartphone. So we're trying to, again, put as much technology into the product as we possibly can to make it seem like you're getting more. It's a modular design, and this is where it's going to get interesting, is we believe it's going to be a build-to-order. I mentioned earlier about changing our buying habits. Imagine, if you will, kind of going into an online configurator and configuring your micro kitchen the way you desire. If you have more than 6 feet, 8 feet, you want more refrigeration, etc. It's the idea that you'd go online, configure your micro kitchen, and then order it directly from GE, and we'd deliver it. And the same thing would hold true for color, materials, and finishes. The CMF options would be pretty broad so that you can fit into a variety of architectural settings. Now, there may be other applications that come along the way, but the idea here is to make the appliance disappear, if you will, when it's not in use. And then finally, in terms of design, is one of the things we keep hearing when we talk to our customers is laundry. Laundry in an apartment in a big city is a pretty big deal. It means not having to go to a laundromat or going down to the laundry facility in the basement of the high-rise and dealing with that. So we are working on both front-load and top-load laundry pairs that fit that same modulus. So we have our concept, and we've been socializing this with our customers for the past year. We've gotten a lot of favorable input and substantial interest from the builders, the developers, architects, and designers. So it's easy, right? Everybody likes it. Let's get started. Well, here's the problem. We like to build lots of things in a very, very simple fashion. What you see on the left is a top-load laundry machine production line in Louisville, Kentucky. And it's highly automated, and it's good at producing high-quality onesies, twosies in big volume. It's not so good when we talk about build-to-order, modular. I want a quartz countertop, or I want a granite countertop. I want walnut veneer. I want high-pressure laminate, etc. And I say that is a big deal to us because we had just, within the past 4 years as a company, spent $1 billion to improve and upgrade our factories in the United States to bring production back from Asia and Mexico, so that we could be competitive on the world market. But it was built around a different manufacturing philosophy than what the micro kitchen presents. So hopefully you guys feel sorry for me. It doesn't take an expert in supply chain or operations management to know that there's an incongruity here. And it's not just the manufacturing floor. When you think about, frankly speaking, our entire product development process, again, it's built on that mentality of incremental improvement on the existing platform. It's building on the distribution channels we're familiar with, how to market a product at a Lowe's or a Home Depot versus how to market a product to an urban customer. So our process needs to be revisited as well. We're not really good at creating new categories and fitting that concept into our current product development process. And as the chart says, I'll leave it up to you whether you think 24 to 36 months is fast or slow, but in my book, I think 2 to 3 years to get a product out the door is a little slow. But again, in defense of the other side, these are pretty complex products in terms of their composition and the regulatory requirements that we have to undergo, whether it be energy standards, water standards, etc. So with that in mind, and anticipating that need for more flexibility and the underlying change that's going to take place in our industry, last spring we launched the new product innovation process. It's very heavily based on open innovation principles. I talked a little bit earlier in the break about weighing open innovation versus intellectual property, and I got to tell you, from where I sit, I think this whole notion of closed innovation, protect your IP, file your patent, file your disclosures, and then go attack is really a thing of the past. In our world, if it takes 5 to 6 years to get that patent issued, and now you have a club, the world has moved on. So, we've really embraced this notion that open innovation is going to really advance our business a lot faster than that closed world of IP. The other thing is advanced manufacturing techniques. You see the robot arms in the back, you see 3D printing going on, and other rapid prototyping and small batch manufacturing techniques. That's going to shift the world as well. So this notion of come up with the ideal business plan, vet it through a committee, go to the CFO, get funding, the $30 to $50 to $60 million it takes to fund a new product platform, to a more nimble build, test, and learn kind of iterative methodology is really where we're going. Some people say, fail early and fail often. I say fail early and fail cheaply. And I mean, I'd rather fail when it's a foam core than when it's coming off of hardened tool steel. So that's where we stand in terms of our thinking about product development. We created an offline process, and we went ahead and we've actually facilitated we created the facility off of our main campus, that 900-acre campus I was telling you about. It's not that we don't have space, but we feel that there's some benefit to taking this process off-site. It's called First Build. It's really about dedicating resources to the process and really rethinking innovation. There's 4 parts to First Build. There's the community, which is obviously the most important part. It's the inventors, it's the dreamers, designers, the enthusiasts in our space that are going to drive this notion forward. It's a prototype lab full of the latest in terms of rapid prototyping equipment. It's small batch manufacturing. Valerie said microfactory. That's what we term it. We call a microfactory something you can build no more than 1,000 of. Because once you get to that magic 1,000, you really need to rethink your manufacturing investment and think about moving that product from a small batch environment into a mass volume play. We call it say small batch because in Kentucky small batch bourbon's a big thing nowadays. And then the last thing, and just as importantly, is our ability to sell products from this facility outside of our traditional channels. But the ability to go direct to consumer is an interesting opportunity. So this is First Build. It's been in place since July of last year. We have roughly 14 full-time GE engineers and designers on site, but they're facilitators. They're not managers. We don't use that title. They're leaders. We have industrial designers there that lead the industrial design dialogue and lead the industrial design activity and guide. Same thing in terms of software engineering, electrical engineering, and mechanical engineering. So it's a very lightly led environment. It's not about Six Sigma. It's really about build, test, and learn. And I believe I'm going to a video here, so I'm going to duck down and turn the video on. Stay with me. So here's a quick overview of First Build.
Welcome to First Build, a community of home enthusiasts, designers, engineers, and makers who share ideas for new appliances online. Any idea can become a real product here, where rapid and advanced micro-manufacturing techniques produce products quickly. Let's start with the lab, where community members work together to build prototypes of next-generation appliances. It's equipped with cutting-edge technology, 3D printers from MakerBot, an electronics prototyping center, laser cutter, and hardware components. All the tools to help ideas take shape. First Build is all about community collaboration and iteration, both online and here in the microfactory, with a stimulating interaction space, perfect for gathering, collaboration, and community events. When an idea is ready to be prototyped, community members head out to the workshop where modeling tools are available, from laser cutting to welding. With capabilities to cut, mill, shear, form, and punch materials ranging from wood to metal to plastic, First Build community members have access to the latest machinery to create whatever they can imagine. Feedback from community members is a vital part of the product development process. The interaction space includes a demonstration kitchen where our community is invited to provide valuable feedback on the design and features of each product. When community members are ready to move forward with their products, they bring their prototypes to the microfactory for small batch production. The flexibility of the manufacturing space allows for production to be scaled up based on demand. Once created, products will be sold online and at the on-site retail space. Welcome to First Build, a new world of innovation where creation begins with the community.
So that's first build. It's, as I said before, it's off-site. It's on the campus of the University of Louisville, so it's about 10 miles north of our facility. The university has been fabulous to work with. They donated the space. We obviously brought the equipment and the talent into the space. And it truly is an open maker space. In other words, if you have an idea outside of the core mission of, a new world of home appliances, if you will, it's another makerspace, just like a tech shop is, which you may be familiar with. It's a model where you bring your own material. You have access to the entire equipment. There's only one catch: we're going to publish the work on the internet. I mean, it's because it is an open space, and you have a personal project. Don't be surprised if we don't post it as, "Hey, look at what this guy's working on." We've had a couple of entrepreneurs and business startups use the space for that reason, which is fine. I mean, we're okay with that because it's about the community. A few words about the ideas and the idea generation and compensation, which usually I get a question about IP, intellectual property, and then it's, well, how's big GE not screwing the poor inventor? And the way that works is you own the invention. Through a copyright approach, that's your idea. If we elect to use the idea, then there's a 1% royalty fee and once we go into mass production. So I like to think it's a fair model in terms of your ability to contribute and then benefit from your idea, and you still own the idea. So if you come up with something and you want to take it to Samsung or LG or Whirlpool the next day, you're more than willing to do that. In our minds, it's all about speed and speed to market and that iterative process, and it's a real change for us. I don't mean to minimize it. I mean, you think about GE and its large patent portfolio. This was a pretty big deal, but it's important that when we have concepts like micro kitchen, that we have an avenue to demonstrate and explore those concepts in a very fast and inexpensive way relative to the traditional process. So since moving the micro kitchen to first build, we opened the concept up to its community of inventors, and they've added ideas, contributed. We've been working on prototypes since last summer. Some great ideas have come forth, and some real duds, and it's quick to discard those duds. Today, where are we? Right now we have a property management firm in Chelsea in Manhattan that is committed a number of units as they're building out their next rental property to micro kitchens. So we start shipping one in May and then 2 per month to the end of the year in their properties, and each succeeding installation hopefully will learn and benefit and enhance the micro kitchen in a way that we feel like it's now stabilizing the product enough where we can have a convincing platform, a convincing roadmap that we can then at that point take orders and eventually bring it in to the big manufacturing beast that I showed you in Louisville. So that's where we stand. I'll close by saying it's been a very exciting journey in the past couple of years working in this micro-living space, as well as trying these new manufacturing processes and retail techniques and development processes, and watch the space. I think it's going to be interesting. I'll close with this image, which I think is kind of interesting. I was kind of harping on the 50s and 60s. You kind of look at our micro kitchen of 2014 and 2015 to the GE Kitchen Center from 1956. So there you have it. Questions, comments? Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Most of the equipment is from the counter line and down. Are you looking at anything that goes counter up?
Yeah, one of the options is to build, a wall-hanging refrigerator, if you will. And in fact, that was our first thought. But as we looked at a lot of these smaller spaces, when you go up, it tends to create a more claustrophobic feeling. At least what we've experienced. We were in Seattle and pitching the idea to some of these smaller apartment property managers, and that was their concern: was don't go up, kind of stay low, keep the sight lines clean. Create that feeling of openness. But when you think about it, there's really no reason why we couldn't go up. And in fact, some of those early GE concepts from the 50s, went up and had product mounting on the wall. Will we get into the cabinet business? Possibly. But yeah, I mean, that's certainly a consideration. But right now, our concern was more line of sight and filling the space. Yeah, and again, I think this development in Chelsea is going to, in New York City is really going to help us kind of think through that, because a lot of those properties, if you're familiar with that area, is, post-war, construction and post-war buildings, and they're subdividing these floors. So we'll learn a lot. We'll learn a lot. Yes.
Have you thought about looking at the marine environment for ideas? If you stop and think about what you've shown here is a lot of the same size concepts, but all combined together, versus actually shrinking it down to a refrigerator that's half the size. Or
right. Yeah, I'll tell you, Ray. We one of the images you saw was actually a rendition of an Airstream. Because we do feel that and I didn't want to get too much into that baby boomer generation, but there's that whole trend towards the baby boomers and, their notion of downsizing and looking at these alternative career paths and kind of their, chapter 2 in their lives, marine applications, RV applications, casitas, and multifamily, residents, et cetera. So there's a lot of flexibility. Oh, I got you. That's good. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Have you looked at having independent pieces that would exist in other places? Because at the moment, it's all built in, and there are obvious technical issues, but I'm curious whether you've explored pieces that could be multifunctional and exist as furniture in these environments.
Yeah, right now the kind of focus is creating a palette of finishes on the countertop and counterfronts that will blend in with what the designer and architect is going after. But that's something that, I don't know if you saw some of those images that we had presented through the First Build innovations. We had a number of people join First Build from other parts of the world that are more sensitive to that type of multifunctionality approach, and so I think there's some benefit there. Near term, I think where you might see some of that freestanding is in the laundry product, where you may just want that laundry pair set over here or somewhere else in the space, but it's all open and very doable. I mean, one of the things that we like about this is when you look at the core technology, we're not inventing new ways of cooking, new ways of refrigeration. We're just taking existing componentry, compressors, valves, et cetera, and just repackaging them in a way that's more conducive to these smaller spaces.
Hi. Here.
Oh, sorry.
First of all, thank you very much for your very insightful lecture.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the start of the conversation in terms of demographic and having a projection of the future and who would be the potential users of the future. But here, actually, this is perfect slide to look at, and what brings up to my mind is how come now the 6-foot kitchen unit, despite it having this new technology, new materials, maybe even some kind of interface, the design still looks almost the same as the one from the 60s, except the fact that it now shrunk. So I wonder, because of your presentation and how much you guys are thinking about who is going to be using it, how people will be living, why this is the choice that you make about the design, and how do you think about the consumers and the Millennials generation that they are changing their habits now, they change their behaviors, maybe there's a different way of them now preparing the meal, cooking, or behaving in the kitchen. I wonder if you take this type of ideas also into consideration, or it is a conscious decision of not to.
I'm a child of the 60s, so that's where we start now. I'm just kidding. I think the big step forward, I think, to address your point, is this notion of build to order. Today, what do? You go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot or the corner appliance store, and you have it may look like a very broad selection of products that run as stainless steel appliances but they're all fundamentally the same dimension. You have a choice of stainless, bisque, white, and black, right? And I'm not saying that that's all there is, but this notion of being able to configure your kitchen based on your needs and your cooking styles and your preference will really drive this, and will drive the manufacturer, us, to deliver that kind of flexibility to our customers. So this is a big shift for us. Is that Bauhaus, I guess, but but that doesn't mean that you couldn't render that in other finishes and other configurations and achieve, your own aesthetic, style. In terms of cooking and cooking styles, we're always monitoring, and I think one of the things that First Build is allowing us to do is look at what I would consider today maybe niche cooking technologies. We were talking earlier about sous vide as a sort of next generation cooking technology, although it's been around in commercial applications for years. It's starting to filter into the sort of the residential market. First Build allows us to stay on the leading edge. So as a community member says, I believe in a certain style of cooking or a certain technique of cooking, we can explore that, prototype it, demonstrate it, and prove or disprove its validity. So I think there's a lot of flexibility here. So I wouldn't get too hung up on these images and think more about the underlying premise of open innovation, rapid build, rapid prototype, and small batch manufacturing to get us there. So I hope that answered your question.
Hi, I was just curious about the capability of multi-use space in the kitchen. Like you'd showed the cutting board over the sink, but then the sink was still open. It seems like an ability to actually fully close off the sink would end that kind of idea where you have a surface that serves multiple purposes. Even something like using the inductive coils in the stovetop
in the material
as a charger for your laptop or your cell phone.
Right.
I was wondering, like, how much further can you push ideas like multi-use technology so that these areas that might be a kitchen at one point actually becomes your desktop at another point?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we're just scratching the surface. In that rendering, you saw that piece of glass defining the induction cooktop. There's really no reason you couldn't put the coils under, the quartz. And when not in use, that becomes a work surface, a desk. I don't know if you saw a couple of the earlier images from some of the First Build entries. Tables were pulling out, chairs were huge opportunity, and we're excited about that. Task lighting, to your point, the backsplash, USB charging. There's really no reason why you couldn't really turn that backsplash into an active area for other purposes when not in use as a kitchen. That's, again, I go back to that notion that, go to firstbuild.com, throw an idea in the mix, let's build it and test it. I mean, that's really what it's all about.
So one of the things I struggle with at Boeing is getting the enterprise to adopt open source and kind of open innovation and not be afraid of it.
Right.
How did GE overcome that, or like what have been key milestones?
Yeah, that's a great point. First of all, our CMO Beth Comstock, really one of her roles as Chief Marketing Officer of the big GE, the $160 billion thing, is to think about innovation processes and techniques and driving those into the verticals, the business units. We are a natural guinea pig as an appliance business. We're the only consumer-facing part of GE. So people get it. You say, well, GE Appliances, okay, I know what you mean. If you say, GE Renewable Energy, okay, is that solar? Yeah. Is it wind? Yes. Is it, So this is a great vehicle. So we're going to try this open innovation model in this little $5 billion business as part of this $160 billion beast and see if it works. And if it works, then we can move it into the other verticals, right? We can go into healthcare, we can go into aviation, we can go into our energy division, et cetera. So that's the brilliance of Beth's concept, is try it, see how it goes, and then replicate it across the business. Our profit margins, are 4%. Healthcare is 16%. So we're great at messing around with stuff, right? We're not going to put a skid mark on the share price.
So one of the things that kind of caught my attention is I'm looking at open source IMUs, for example. You can buy them on SparkFun for $75 now, and I'm comparing that to our internal development costs. Do you see proprietary innovation as being sustainable, or like how long does it have till the open innovation until like open source or open innovation basically catches up to it and makes it unsustainable.
So to that point, most of our products, on the back of our products has an RJ45, an Ethernet jack. And those products, and that jack is there for when your refrigerator craps out and you call the GE repairman, he shows up, he plugs an Ethernet cable into it, powers up his laptop, it has the diagnostic software, we run the routine, and we say, okay, it's an F code 6, you have a bad bearing in your evaporator, whatever, go fix it. One of the first things we did at First Build is we opened that port up to hackers, which, again, no ended conversations with the lawyers, right? Because now, oh, you're going to run the oven up to 850 degrees? Yeah. Why? Because I want to. So again, you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. So you can actually purchase we call it a green bean, this little module, interface module that goes between an Arduino, the green bean, and the RJ45 port on the back of our dishwasher or refrigerator, and have at it and create stuff. I mean, we have these competitions where we say, hack the dishwasher, hack the washing machine. Why not, right? I mean, again, if you believe that all the ideas aren't resident with the 400 engineers and designers at Appliance Park, that there are other bright people in the world, then you let them in.
So on that note, which is a perfect segue, I was wondering what you were doing with First Build to encourage diversity in the users who are able to come and make stuff there, and also in the ideas.
Yeah, that's one. Again, you'll have to give me a little bit of leeway because we've been open since July of 2014. But as I was describing earlier, I think the power of our lab is it's food, it's cooking, it's cleaning, it's stuff that people get. And I think the beauty of the community going forward, and I don't think we're there yet. Right now, I think we have 5,800 members, is I'm really excited about the idea that, we're going to have foodies, right? We're going to have retired university physics professors. We're going to have engineers that used to work at Whirlpool that are retired and want to play. And so I really think that the beauty is going to be the diversity of the community. We're not there yet. I think one of the things we need to do is a better job in terms of getting the word out and socializing what First Build is all about, that it really is a safe and open environment to play in. But to me, that's going to be we talk about, well, is aviation going to have a First Build? Is healthcare going to? They may very well. But boy, I can attract a lot more people that know, what constitutes a great meal, great ethnic cooking, whatever, through this. And you're right. I think that's going to be the beauty of this deal. It's not just going to be a bunch of engineers or software hackers. It's going to be that diverse group that's powering the thing.
Hi, okay, it's Valerie talking again. We'll take another 1 or 2 questions, and then I just want to tell you that you can all stay and have a drink and talk with us and talk to each other after. So
I'm switching
and
to the
ask more
alcoholic
questions.
Variety after
right,
this.
with alcohol. So, yeah. Oh,
I should have brought some.
Hi there. I wanted to say thank you also for the lovely lecture. I work in the architectural industry right now, and I was just wondering, especially since it seems like a manufacturing obstacle to overcome, why GE is taking it upon itself to customize these products instead of leaving it in the hands of the builders and architects.
So one of the models, again, in that configurator is, we'll give you the hard points, and you as an architect can decide how to meet the hard points of the, the product. The coils in the induction go here, the convertible refrigerator drawer is here, these are the hard points, and then you can, there really will be no reason why you couldn't customize that, to your liking. A big part of our business is in that contract channel, and as I said before, we spend a lot of time with the contract customers to understand their needs and how they can benefit from it. So I don't think we're excluding you or your ability to customize the product and meet, your needs and your clients' needs. It's really about kind of democratizing the product as well. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. I was also wondering, sorry, one more question. If we are interested in engaging these products when they become available, how will we know about them? What's the best way?
I would say see me in September, and the reason I say that is by that time we will have had 8 to 10 installs, and we'll have some real learning under our belt. One of the learnings we've accomplished so far is, or one of the many learnings is, providing the architect and the builder with a common hookup point for electrical and plumbing. That came from that kind of iteration. So I would say come September, we'll have a lot of learning. We'll be able to engage in a more intelligent discussion as to what is it going to take. We didn't talk cost, but how much it's going to cost and that sort of thing. So give us till the fall.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Question, to what extent do you engage mobility impairment and universal design and
as you know, ADA compliance.
Ergonomic features.
Yeah, I mean, going into it, ADA compliance is, is the point of entry, right? But we want to go further than that, obviously, and some of the drawer configurations you saw, we've seen some ergonomic challenges, et cetera. I have a human factors engineer on the staff, and I've asked him to take a good look at this and figure out how we can address some of the mobility requirements you bring up. But at the very least, right now we consider this an ADA compliant product, or we couldn't sell it. But again, a lot of learning. It's one thing for G to come in and say we have all the answers. It's another thing for me to come in and say we're learning, and that's really where we are. So, we're aware of those issues, and we hope to address those. But that's not, corporate doublespeak. That's really where we are in this process.
Well, thanks, Lou. It was an amazing presentation.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks,
I really
everyone.
appreciate it. Thank you.